It's beer o'clock on Real Ale Craft Beer. It's another battle video, and that's because Aldi, and I kind of missed this one to be honest with you. This has been out for probably the best part of a year. I suppose you go into kind of shops like Aldi, you scan the beer aisles. I've already reviewed the anti-establishment IPA. I already reviewed the Aldi IPA, and I kind of just one of those things that kind of slipped under my radar. So this beer has been out about a year. It's Brewdog's take on Hazy Jane. This is called Hazy IPA, New England IPA by Aldi, anti-establishment down the side there. Looks very much like a can of Hazy Jane. Same style, New England IPA, 5% ABV, 440 milliliter can. Now, fun fact, I hunted everywhere for a can of Hazy Jane to do a proper review of Hazy Jane in a can versus Aldi's anti-establishment. But Brewdog have gone into like the putting their beers into 4-packs now, and 6-packs and 12-packs. They want you to start buying their beer in bulk. And as much as I think Brewdog's beer's okay, I don't want 4 cans of Hazy Jane because it will simply sit in my fridge for the best part of, the other 3 cans will sit in my fridge for the best part of 6 months, and I'll end up throwing them away or giving them to family. So I just wanted the one bottle, the one beer, the one cans, ideally, to review against Aldi's efforts. But yeah, fun fact, I could only buy one packaged product from Brewdog of their Hazy Jane in the bottle. Couldn't find it in a can, a single can. I went to Iceland, Home Bargains, B&M, Asda, Morrison, Sainsbury's, Lidl, Aldi. I went everywhere looking for a can, couldn't find one. So this is 5% ABV, it's in a 660 milliliter bottle, and that bottle cost me £3 in Sainsbury's. So we're gonna do what we can with the 2 beers. Let's get open Brewdog's Hazy Jane. There's the bottle cap, 660 bottle. I used to love this beer years ago. It used to be one of my kind of all-time favourites from Brewdog. Their beer's gone very mass market these days. I'm going to give a good, honest review of the 2 beers. I'm not going to, you know, I'm not a massive fan of Brewdog these days, but that doesn't mean to say that it's already a worse beer than the Aldi's, you know, without even giving it a fair and proper crack at the whip. We got a 1-finger white head, good levels of carbonation. It's hazy. It's kind of light, very light amber in colour. Here we go then, this is Aldi's version. This cost me £1.95 for the can. It's 440, not 660 though. So I suppose if you add that into account, I'm not a mathematician, but it seems like there's a third more beer in the bottle. And it's a third of a price more expensive than for me, with my very basic mathematics skills. I mean, if you're better than me, comment in the comments box. That seems like per milliliter, say per 100 milliliter, that works out the same price, doesn't it? So let's put the 2 beers side by side then. Oh my goodness me, God, they look very, very similar, don't they? Very similar. I'm not sure if the camera's even able to pick up if there's a difference between the 2 beers. I would say Brewdog's Hazy Jane is ever so slightly more amber in colour. I would say the Aldi anti-establishment Hazy IPA is slightly lighter. Whether the camera's picking that up, I hope it has for you guys, because I'd like to think it has. And as always, they're both 5% ABV. Let's get into the fake version. I say fake, the rip-off. Let's get into the rip-off version first, shall we? Aroma. Aroma on the Brewdog. Oh. My goodness me, that is so similar. Like your grapefruit, your passion fruit, your mango, your orange peel, fleshy blood orange. Slightly spicy and peppery from the Aldi version. The Brewdog, in all honesty, smells a little bit more sweeter. Let's get into Aldi's Hazy IPA. It's not bad, actually. It's got that kind of like tutti frutti. I say tutti frutti. Can you remember tutti fruttis? They were like a 1980s sweet. I used to find them fantastic when I was a youngster. I always refer back to tutti frutti. It's all of that kind of like gum, chewy gum, kind of like raspberries and grapefruit and passion, all that like tropical fruit flavour in a beer that's come from the hops. Slightly spicy, peppery, bitter on the back end. It's quite pleasant, actually. If somebody came rolling through my doors into my barbecue and they said, here you are, there's 4 cans of this Hazy IPA, and in return you're going to give me 4 of your hot dogs. You know, that's how barbecues seem to work, isn't they? Especially with my family anyway. They bring you some beer, you feed them. That sort of thing. Somebody brought me 4 cans of that Hazy IPA. After trying it right now, I don't think I'd be shrugging my shoulders too much. I think I'd be quite pleased with it, actually. It's very drinkable. It's very refreshing. It's nicely carbonated. And grapefruit, lemon, orange peel flavours going on, spicy, peppery. It's not bad. It really isn't bad. It's really quite pleasant, actually. Let's try the Brewdog version. This is actual Hazy Jane by Brewdog, what used to be one of my favourite beers. It's incredibly similar. I mean, all of the hops are similar. All of the hops are kind of almost nigh on the same. But I'm going to say this, because it is a battle. Ever since Brewdog moved into their new brewery, or they've been there, I mean, at least 10 years now. It's not a new brewery anymore. At least, let's start again. As soon as Brewdog moved into their brewery in Ellen in Scotland, I noticed a change in the beer. And I can only point it down to being the water. Whatever water supply they're using at Ellen, at their plant in Ellen in Scotland, it almost immediately put Brewdog on the back foot. it's a bit like Marston's. If you're a real ale drinker, you've been drinking real ale for a long time, and you kind of maybe have read a book or two about real ale, or you know a little bit about real ale and ales and all these other things, you will understand the Burton Snatch. Now, the Burton Snatch all boils down to the water in the Burton-on-Trent area. It's very hard water, and it's almost kind of like sulphury and farty, and almost kind of the whole world, the whole beer world, because it's famous because Burton-on-Trent used to export beer, IPA, kind of all over the blooming world. So that kind of Burton Snatch spread across the world. People, breweries set up and they were like, right, we need hard water and we need that Burton Snatch, and they actually kind of replicated their own beers on the Burton Snatch, on that kind of very hard, very kind of sulphury. What I'm trying to say is you will know a pint of Marston's Pedigree or any beer that comes from the Burton area, you will get that kind of slightly farty on the nose Burton Snatch, that kind of very hard water snatch. And similarly, with any Brewdog beer, you will have that sort of, I always say you can tell it's a Brewdog beer. You can tell it's a Brewdog beer. It's something about the water. It has to be the water. Simply has to be the water, because it happened when they changed brewery to Ellen. It can't be the hops, because hops are grown over different kind of areas of the world, and they're kind of like wherever the cheapest place to buy hops is, they buy the hops. So there's going to be a slight variation in the flavour of the hops. There's going to be a slight variation in the flavour of malt over time. The only thing that stays static and the same is probably their yeast and definitely their water. So I've put it down personally to their water. They moved to Allen, they moved to this brewery, and you get that kind of like Brewdog-y flavour. I could put a blindfold on and taste any Brewdog beer and go, yeah, that's a Brewdog beer, and it all boils down to the water. I'm really sorry if I've lost you, I'm really sorry if I've bored you at this point, but it makes a really valid point. The valid point is that even though the hops in the two beers are relatively the same, I'm going to choose the anti-establishment IPA on the fact that it's brewed somewhere else and it doesn't have that Brewdog water taste. On a personal level, I don't really like it. I don't like the water from Ellen. I really don't. There's something there that's not quite right for me. It affects the flavour of the beer. Yeah, definitely. So even though I think on a personal level, certainly with my mathematician mind, I think the beers are relatively the same in price. 660 millilitres for £3 versus 440 millilitres for £1.95 is more or less the same. I'm going to give the rating and the win to Aldi's anti-establishment Hazy IPA purely on the water. Everything else about the two beers is more or less exactly the same. They're both using IPA yeast, that kind of lovely New England yeast. They're both using the same, more or less the same hops. It all boils down to the water. It really does. 7 out of 10 for the Aldi anti-establishment Hazy IPA. 6 out of 10 for Brewdog's Hazy Jane. I hope you liked the video. Please put your comments in the comments box. Subscribe to our daily beer and food reviews. Give us a big fat thumbs up. Boom. Cheers.